Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Tonight we're telling you all about the second consecutive night of destruction in Ukraine as Russia unleashed another wave of drone and missile strikes. Meanwhile, a senior Ukrainian intelligence officer has been shot dead in broad daylight in the Ukrainian capital. Officials believe it is a targeted assassination. We tell you all that you need to know. Also on the show for you tonight, we're telling you about a different kind of a battle raging in Ukraine's corridors of power, where lawmakers are pushing to decriminalize pornography. We tell you why, along with the complete story. What is Pakistan's so-called kill and dump policy all about? We tell you all that you need to know. All this and more coming up. A second consecutive night of terror gripped Ukraine as Russia unleashed another wave of drone and missile strikes. The coordinated overnight assault killed at least 2 people in Ukraine's capital and left 16 others injured across the country. The attack stretched across nearly 10 hours and marked one of the most intense aerial offensives since the start of the war. Russia targeted the Ukrainian capital and its surrounding region with relentless precision. The residents of Kyiv woke up to scenes of chaos, shattered windows, charred vehicles, and buildings ripped open by blasts.
A moment after I had run away, I heard a roar and a cracking sound, the sound of glass shattering. I turned around and saw that my apartment was gone. The fire started instantly.
There was a very strong explosion and the sound of shattered glass. Everybody was left speechless and terrified.
Ukrainian authorities reported structural damage in at least 8 out of 10 city districts. Ukraine's Air Force said Russia launched 397 drones, including nearly 200 Iranian-designed Shahed drones, along with 18 missiles, adding that they shot down 14 missiles and 164 drones, while an additional 204 drones and missiles were neutralized through electronic warfare. Despite Ukraine's air defenses, drone debris reportedly fell in 23 separate locations. In total, 33 drones reportedly struck their targets across 8 regions, including Chernihiv, Sumy, Poltava, Kharkiv. Russia's defense ministry in a statement said that the operation targeted military industrial sites and an airfield near Kyiv, claiming all objectives were achieved and all designated sites were hit. This latest barrage follows the largest aerial strike of the war just the night before, with 728 Russian drones and 13 missiles launched into Ukraine on Tuesday night and into Wednesday morning. Russia appears to be ramping up its aerial attacks against Ukraine. In the month of June alone, Ukraine recorded 5,438 drones and 239 missiles entering its airspace, the highest monthly total since the war started. And the first 10 days of July itself reportedly witnessed 2,464 drones and 58 missiles fired at Ukrainian territory. Ukraine's president, in a post on social media, urged Western allies to act more swiftly, not just in terms of sanctions, but also in terms of investment in defense systems and drone interceptors, stating that he plans to speak with international partners about new funding and technology to counter future attacks. And in Russia, the defense ministry said its own territory also faced drone attacks. Overnight, Russian air defenses reportedly shot down 14 Ukrainian drones over the Black Sea and multiple border regions. Meanwhile, frustration is mounting in Washington. Just yesterday, US President Donald Trump described the Russian president as very nice, but ultimately meaningless. And according to an audio obtained by CNN, Trump told a private gathering of donors last year that he had warned Putin that the US would bomb Moscow, in words that cannot be said out loud. In an attempt to deter Moscow from attacking Kyiv, Trump said Putin did not believe him, but also claimed that Putin believed him 10%. And Trump also allegedly delivered a similar threat to Chinese President Xi Jinping about Beijing's potential plans towards Taiwan. And when asked about Trump's reported remarks, the Kremlin spokesperson said that Russia can neither confirm nor deny it because, in their words, they do not know whether it is fake or not. Back in Kyiv, government officials continue to push the White House to unfreeze shipments of critical American weapon systems, including US Patriot missile interceptors, which have reportedly proven essential in countering Russia's air assault. Some military aid, in fact, has reportedly resumed, including 155mm artillery shells and GMLR rockets used in HIMARS systems. As aerial strikes become more frequent and more destructive, for Kyiv and the rest of Ukraine, the past 2 nights have brought more than just destruction. They have reignited a grim reminder that this war is far from over. Zelensky also kicked off a high-stakes summit in Italy today, by the way, on rebuilding his war-battered country. At the Rome gathering, Zelensky reportedly is aiming for back-to-back meetings, including a virtual session with leaders from nearly 30 countries, among them the UK and France. And with his top agenda being securing urgent funding to strengthen Ukraine's defenses. Addressing the conference, Zelensky made a direct appeal for enhanced military aid, emphasizing on the need for more air defense supplies, investments in interceptor drones, air defense systems, and missiles. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State conveyed U.S. President Donald Trump's growing frustration with Russia and the lack of progress in the peace negotiations. Rubio delivered the message to the Russian foreign minister during a private conversation on the sidelines of the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting in Malaysia. The meeting followed Trump's latest public rebuke of Putin and said that the U.S. would send more weapons to Ukraine.
Obviously, Minister Lavrov was here today. We had an opportunity to discuss some things, and I thought it was important and good that we talked. And we shared some information and ideas that I intend to take back to the president. Hopefully, it'll lead to something positive. I can't guarantee it, the president's been frustrated at the lack of progress. He's made that clear publicly. But, we'll see if that changes.
A senior Ukrainian intelligence officer has been shot dead in broad daylight in central Kyiv in what officials believe is a targeted assassination. Just a word of caution here. Some viewers may find the following details disturbing. Colonel Ivan Voronich, a top operational officer in Ukraine Security Service, was shot 5 times at close range by an unknown assailant wielding a silenced pistol. The hit unfolded as Voronich crossed a quiet street in Kyiv near a block of flats. And without warning, a lone figure approaches, draws a weapon fitted with a suppressor, and fires 5 deadly rounds into the colonel. Voronich died at the spot, and the gunman vanished without a trace. A former Ukrainian MP blames Russian special services, claiming this is all the hallmarks of a Kremlin-style targeted killing. The assassination fueling tensions in an already shadowy war where both Ukraine and Russia regularly carry out covert eliminations. Since the full-scale war started in February 2022, a string of high-profile figures have been hunted down and killed far from the front lines. In December, Ukraine's spy agency reportedly killed a Russian general and his aide in the heart of Moscow. In April, General Yaroslav Moskalik was killed when his car, packed with an improvised bomb, laced with shrapnel. In fact, Russia responds with its own deadly operations. In September 2024, Russia's spy agency reportedly killed a Ukrainian spy, allegedly plotting to assassinate a senior defense executive. The war between Russia and Ukraine is no longer confined to trenches and missiles. It's being fought in whispers, back alleys, car parks, crowded streets. As espionage turns bloody, the spy war is becoming as lethal as what we are seeing on the battlefield. And while missiles rain down and drones prowl Ukraine's skies, a very different kind of a battle is raging on in the country's corridors of power. In a bold move to shore up the war-battered economy, Ukrainian lawmakers are pushing to decriminalize pornography, arguing that taxing the adult content industry could deliver millions in desperately needed revenue for the country's defense. Take a look.
The brutal reality of total war has forced Ukraine to confront unthinkable choices. With its cities under relentless bombardment and its national treasury stretched to breaking point, a bold yet contentious legislative battle is unfolding in Kyiv. Ukrainian lawmakers are pushing to legalize the adult entertainment industry, aiming to harness its lucrative potential to directly fund the nation's desperate fight for freedom. Lawmakers in Kyiv say this isn't about cultural liberalization. It's a stark, pragmatic calculation to generate millions in much-needed tax revenue. A grim testament to the extraordinary pressures facing a nation fighting for its very existence. This dramatic shift comes after a petition spearheaded by OnlyFans model Svetlana Dvornikova surged past 25,000 signatures, forcing President Zelensky to respond that lawmakers are working on it. Ukraine is not alone in this debate. Countries such as Germany, France, Spain and the UK have legalized or decriminalized adult content production, regulating the industry and collecting taxes rather than driving it underground. As Russian missiles continue to strike and Ukraine's survival hangs in the balance, lawmakers are weighing every option. The question now is, will the legalization of porn become an unlikely weapon in Ukraine's fight for freedom and financial stability? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Our next story is from Pakistan. Another chilling discovery in Balochistan has renewed outcry over what families and activists call systematic enforced disappearances. A phenomenon our viewers must have seen us explore in detail over the years. In the latest, 3 bullet-riddled bodies have been found in a stream within the Yaroshahar police station limits in Balochistan's Duki district. The police confirmed the bodies were taken to the district headquarters hospital in Duki, where doctors identified them as Ali Muhammad Hassan Baloch, Muhammad Yunus, and Wali Muhammad. All were residents of Kili Safar Ali Baloch in Duki. And the doctors confirmed that all 3 were shot dead. Local outlets, including the Balochistan Post, report a disturbing pattern. One of the victims, Muhammad Yunus, had allegedly been a victim of forcible disappearance by Pakistani security forces. On June 21, the Balochistan National Party, Mengal or BNPM, had confirmed his disappearance, and in an official statement, a delegation from Duki had briefed the party leaders in Quetta about security raids and several local residents being detained, including Muhammad Yunus. The Balochistan Post notes that this is not an isolated incident. In recent months, security forces and Pakistan's counter-terrorism department have reportedly killed suspected armed militants in Duki. But in many cases, families later identify the dead as victims of enforced disappearance. Just last month itself, on the 28th of June, the CTD claimed to have killed 4 alleged militants, but the families recognized one of them as Wazir Khan Solani, who was a local poet and had been missing for 8 months. The others were also reported missing before that. In April, 5 more people were killed in an alleged shootout. Families of 3 victims claimed they were also forcibly disappeared, while 2 bodies remain unidentified to this day. Just think about this. It seems to be a pattern in Balochistan, and the latest discovery in Duki has once again only revived the issue of extrajudicial killings and the use of counter-terrorism laws to hide custodial deaths. And these incidents are part of a much larger crisis. According to the UN, hundreds, if not thousands, have gone missing in Balochistan over the years. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has called this a persistent and systematic issue, with most victims being political activists, students and civilians. Activist groups like Voice for Baloch Missing Persons claim that thousands remain missing since the early 2000s. Till date, their families holding daily protests in Quetta and Islamabad, demanding answers. Imagine that. Human Rights Watch has also criticized the CTD, in fact, for quote-unquote staged encounters and extrajudicial killings, calling for independent investigations. The Pakistan government, however, denies systematic disappearances, arguing that many missing persons join militant groups even as the courts continue to order recoveries. In the year 2021, the Pakistan Parliament withdrew a bill to criminalize enforced disappearances, sparking outrage among rights groups and families. And it's the same old story in Pakistan's Balochistan, by the way. Families and activists continue to demand accountability, and all they get back is more repression in a way, even as evidence of systematic enforced disappearances continues to emerge from Balochistan. With 3 more bodies recovered this week, the cycle of fear, of grief, of impunity in Balochistan only deepens as families continue their search for truth and justice. And before we go on any further, here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We are telling you all about how a web of control now threatens to give China the power to spy on US military movements. You don't want to miss this. Ukraine has arrested 2 Chinese nationals, a father and son, for allegedly spying on its Neptune missile program. We get to the complete story. Will artificial intelligence snatch your job? How real are the threats? We discuss all this and more coming up. Our next story comes from the Arctic. A silent but heated battle taking place under the icy waters of the Arctic. For the first time ever, a US nuclear-powered submarine has docked in Iceland, sending out a strong signal to Russia. You don't even know it yet, but Cold War rivalries are being revived. And what does this mean for Arctic security and global power dynamics? We're explaining this in tonight's edition of Gravitas Deep Dive. In a rare and historic move, the USS Newport News, which is a Los Angeles-class fast attack nuclear submarine, has docked in Iceland. It is the first time a nuclear-powered submarine has ever made a port call to the island nation. Now, this is new because Iceland only began allowing nuclear-powered submarines into its territorial waters last year. For the US Navy, this visit is a major strategic milestone. The USS Newport News is armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles and advanced underwater surveillance systems. Its deployment not only strengthens America's deterrence, but also helps to protect critical undersea infrastructure like submarine cables. A rising concern after the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage in the Baltics. And here's why Iceland matters. Located in the Greenland-Iceland-UK gap, it's a key choke point for Russian submarines. From Murmansk, this region controls access routes from the Arctic to the Atlantic. In fact, during the Cold War, Iceland was a critical outpost. In the year 1954, the US Air Force stationed fighter jets at the Keflavik Air Base to guard the Gyuk Gap. Anti-submarine aircraft like the P-3 Orion patrolled these waters, tracking Soviet submarines, and today that mission continues with advanced P-8 Poseidon aircraft rotations as well as NATO fighters defending Iceland, which has no air force of its own, by the way. And by docking in Iceland, the US submarine force gains a crucial support point for operations in the Arctic. Until now, their closest options were in Scotland or northern Norway, and both are hundreds of miles away. But the race to control the Arctic has been quietly brewing for years, and it's been heating up. The region is rapidly turning into a potential flashpoint, in fact. Climate change has opened up new opportunities for resource extraction, shipping, military activity. We've been telling you about this. And what are the key players? US and Russia, both with significant Arctic interests as well as territorial claims. So for all these reasons and more, Iceland is important strategically for the US, and this particular port call also mirrors past US moves. For example, in 2019, B-2 stealth bombers first landed in Iceland. thus expanding American reach into the Arctic. US and allies are nervous as Russia has allegedly stepped up its military build-up along Finland's border and ramped up submarine activity. In the Arctic waters, Russia considers the Arctic core, in fact, to its national security and economic future, with nearly 20% of its GDP linked to Arctic oil and gas projects. It has modernized Soviet-era bases and built new ones, like the Nagorskoye Air Base on Franz Joseph Land. It has radar systems, long-range missiles, runways capable of hosting MiG-31 interceptors. Russia also maintains the largest fleet of nuclear as well as conventional icebreakers globally, and these are crucial for Arctic navigation. It's also building nuclear-powered icebreakers like the Project 22220 series, which will escort commercial convoys through the Northern Sea route. But that's not all. Northern Fleet submarines like the Yasen M and Bore-class ballistic missile subs regularly patrol under the ice. In fact, in the 2021 Umka war games, 3 Russian nuclear submarines simultaneously surfaced through Arctic ice, a display of its full capability. NATO has historically viewed the Arctic as a low-tension zone, but that is changing with renewed focus on deterrence and preparedness. And NATO troops continue to hold training exercises in the region. Under exercises like the NATO Nordic Response 2024, troops from member states trained to fight in harsh conditions. Then Finland and Sweden's NATO accession also altering the security map for NATO in a way. With their membership, NATO has greater access to the Arctic through Finland's land border with Russia and Sweden's strategic coastline. Norway, Denmark and Iceland have also strengthened trilateral defense coordination, especially for maritime surveillance and undersea infrastructure protection. Already there are calls within NATO to adopt a formal Arctic strategy, recognizing it as a distinct theater rather than just a peripheral zone. Meanwhile, Iceland, which is a founding NATO member, has no standing army but plays a pivotal geostrategic role in this battle. After US forces left Keflavik in 2006, Iceland managed air policing through NATO rotations, but rising Arctic tensions have revived interest in permanent infrastructure. The Cold War never truly ended under the Arctic ice. As the US fortifies its presence and Russia flexes its muscles, the Arctic has officially become the newest theater of great power competition. China's silent offensive is closing in on America's doorstep. While Washington's gaze was fixed elsewhere, Beijing has quietly woven a dangerous web of control over major seaports across Latin America and the Caribbean. And this covert network now threatens to give China the power to spy on US military movements, strangle vital shipping lanes, and even launch a surprise strike on American soil.
Drones buzz overhead. Missiles stand ready. The specter of destruction looms not in some distant theater, but right in the US's own backyard. A silent, insidious threat tightens its grip around America's very doorstep. China has quietly seized control or pervasive influence over a staggering 37 major seaports spanning Latin America and the Caribbean. The latest analysis from the Center for Strategic and International Studies lays bare a meticulously constructed web of Chinese influence where seemingly innocuous commercial investments are morphing into potential dual-use assets. capable of rapid conversion into military bases. The sheer audacity of this strategy reveals China's long-term geopolitical ambitions. Beijing is exploiting economic vulnerabilities, offering lucrative investments and loans to gain control over critical infrastructure. The Trump administration aggressively pushed back against this expansion, warning that Chinese control of the Panama Canal and how the expanding PLA poses a direct national security threat.
Through its massive military buildup and growing willingness to use military force to achieve its goals, including gray zone tactics and hybrid warfare, China has demonstrated that it wants to fundamentally alter the region's status quo.
As Beijing tightens its stranglehold, the question is clear: will America wake up before it's too late? Or will the dragon's web ensnare the last line of defense?
And we're switching gears for now. The United States and Brazil are suddenly locked in a trade war, and it's not just about economics. In a rather extraordinary move, US President Donald Trump has announced 50% tariffs on all Brazilian imports. Why? Because Brazil is putting his political ally, Jair Bolsonaro, on trial for attempting a coup. You heard that right. And in a letter to the president of Brazil, Trump called the prosecution an international disgrace, saying the tariffs would take effect on August 1. He wrote in the letter, and I'm quoting here, "The way that Brazil has treated former President Bolsonaro, a highly respected leader throughout the world, is an international disgrace." But Brazil's president immediately hit back, saying that Brazil is a sovereign country with independent institutions and that it will not accept being abused by anyone. He added that the case against Bolsonaro is the sole responsibility of the Brazilian judiciary. The US, by the way, is Brazil's second largest trading partner after China. And analysts are saying these tariffs could have major economic impacts. But Trump is clearly using them as a political weapon, it seems. In fact, Trump's letter also accusing Brazil of secret and unlawful censorship orders to US social media platforms, referring to Brazilian court orders to take down accounts that threatened democracy in Brazil. Justice Alexandre de Moraes, who is overseeing the Bolsonaro case, has ordered tech companies to remove such accounts, and the president defended his country's justice system, saying that in Brazil, freedom of expression is not to be confused with aggression or violent practices. The war of words following a week of public sparring between Trump and Lula. Earlier this week itself, Trump called Bolsonaro's trial a witch hunt, comparing it to his own legal troubles in the US. But the Brazilian president quickly fired back, calling Trump's threats very wrong and very irresponsible. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Trump needs to know that the world has changed. We don't want an emperor." And as far as economy is concerned, Brazil is the 15th largest US trading partner, with total two-way trade of $92 billion in the year 2024. And there's also a rare $7.4 billion US trade surplus. Top US exports to Brazil include commercial aircraft, petroleum products, crude oil, coal, semiconductors, while Brazil's top exports to the US are crude oil, coffee, semi-finished steel, pig iron. This escalating tariff war over a criminal trial could have far-reaching consequences, not just for Brazil, but also for US ties with South American countries. And the US president has done it again, almost over a month after the infamous confrontation with the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, over claims of white genocide in South Africa. Trump seemed to have now extended his ire to 5 African leaders who were invited for lunch at the White House. Here's what happened. The leaders of Senegal, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, and Gabon sat down with Trump as part of the 3-day mini-summit hosted by the American leader. But what was initially expected to be a meeting centered around business opportunities between the US and African countries turned into intimidation and awkwardness, and some insult thrown in as well. Taking a U-turn from the discussions around tariffs and fostering trade ties, the session became a bit more about language skills, lessons on time management, and multiple interruptions from the US president himself, asking leaders to speed up their remarks and wrap up the address. On the other hand, the African leaders did not spare any effort to shower praise on the US president. In fact, each leader offered their approval when asked by an African media outlet if Trump should win a Nobel Peace Prize. Senegal even offered to build a golf course where Trump could show off his skills.
I was wondering what your secret was for solving all these complex crises, and I know you are a tremendous golf player. Golf requires concentration and precision, qualities that make for a great leader. Senegal has exceptional opportunities to offer, including in the area of tourism. So perhaps an investment could be made in a golf course in Senegal. It would just be 6 hours by flight from New York, from Miami, from Europe, or from the Gulf countries, and that could be an opportunity for you to show off your skills.
However, among the countries of the African continent, only 5 countries got the so-called special treatment from the American president. He said they were unlikely to face US tariffs. At the summit, Trump also hailed West Africa's rich natural resources aimed at fostering trade to counter the growing influence of Russia as well as China.
And we're working tirelessly to forge new economic opportunities involving both the United States and many African nations. There's great economic potential in Africa, like few other places in many ways. In the long run, this will be far more effective and sustainable and beneficial than anything else that we can be doing together.
However, not all was taken in good spirit. At the beginning of the lunch meeting with Trump asked each of his guests to say a few words to the press. But as the president, Mohammad Ghazouani, started a long address, Trump gestured him to conclude his speech. He then proposed that the African heads of state just state their name and country and move on. And that was not the only highlight, as Trump then went on to compliment the president of Liberia for speaking fluent English and asked where he learned to speak so beautifully, when in fact English is the official language of the country.
You had such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes, sir.
In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. That's beautiful English.
Sure.
I have people at this table can't speak nearly as well.
And netizens did not miss the opportunity. They took to social media to criticize what they called Trump's misdemeanor with the African leaders, who are, after all, his business partners. Many even found his remarks to be condescending and downright disrespectful, and even racist in a way, according to them. For South Africa, the immediate concern remains Trump's tariffs. 30% tariffs, remember, have been levied against the country. How will that pan out? We will have to wait and watch. And for more on this, our correspondent sent us this report from Nigeria. Take a look.
Mixed reactions have trailed the turn of events at the recent White House summit, where President Trump hosted leaders from selected African countries to discuss trade. While one leader spoke, Trump interrupted, asking for their name and country and urging them to go a bit quicker, which many perceived as dismissive. Now, social media, particularly X, erupted with criticism, with users calling the behavior disrespectful and embarrassing. Some posts referenced Trump's 2018 shithole comment, framing it as a pattern of disdain for African nations. Others defended it as a minor gaffe. We recall his tension weeks ago with presidents of South Africa and of Ukraine at a different time. Critics have called for a united front amongst African countries in order to be taken seriously by the West. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olaniyi, WION, World is One.
Shifting focus now to India. The country's most wanted list seems to be expanding with a fresh addition to it. After a decades-long chase, India's Central Bureau of Investigation, the CBI, has extradited a woman named Monica Kapoor from the US, who is accused in a 2002 import-export fraud and has been a fugitive since then. Let's just give you some context here. The CBI filed a charge sheet on the 31st of March 2004 against three individuals, Monica Kapoor and her brothers, Rajan Khanna and Rajiv Khanna, for allegedly forging export documents, shipping shipping bills, invoices and bank certificates. For allegedly forging export documents, shipping bills, invoices and bank certificates. In the year 1998, they were also charged for obtaining licenses for import of duty-free gold worth rupees 2.36 crores and selling them on premium, which caused a loss to the government exchequer to the extent of 1.44 crore rupees. While her brothers were convicted in 2006, Monica was declared a proclaimed offender by a Delhi trial court, and an open non-bailable warrant of arrest was issued against her, as well as a request of extradition sent by the CBI to authorities in the United States. And now the CBI has taken custody of Monica Kapoor, who is set to face trial for her alleged role in this multi-million fraud case. And this is being seen as a major breakthrough in the investigative agency's commitment to bring fugitives to face the law in India, regardless of international boundaries. When it comes to high-profile economic offenders, India has had quite a few of them, be it fugitive diamond merchant Nirav Modi, businessman and liquor baron Vijay Mallya, or jeweler Mehul Choksi, each named in rather complex cases of financial scams, frauds, money laundering, all of whom are under the radar of Indian authorities. And in the latest, Mehul Choksi, a key accused in the $2 billion Punjab National Bank fraud case in 2018, faced a major setback when last week itself a Belgian court rejected his bail plea. Choksi is currently lodged in a prison in Antwerp after being arrested on April 11 based on an extradition request sent by the CBI. And what about the others? Nirav Modi is currently lodged in a London prison and is facing extradition proceedings from the UK on request from the Indian authorities. Vijay Mallya, accused of criminal conspiracy, fraud, money laundering in the Kingfisher Airlines case, is currently in the UK fighting extradition to India. And so is his fellow fugitive, Lalit Modi, who faces investigation by multiple agencies in connection with foreign exchange violations and a multi-million-dollar TV rights deal for the 2009 IPL with a World Sports Group. In fact, even as India seems to have tightened its dragnet on overseas fugitives and transnational criminals, there is some way to go to declare the global hunt a true success. One message, though, is loud and clear for those under investigation seeking refuge outside India. The days of sheltering in safe havens may be numbered, and one hopes justice is duly served to those wronged. Will artificial intelligence take away your job? How real is that threat? Is the future of work already here? Because AI is rapidly transforming the global job market. What once seemed like a distant threat is now appearing to be reality, knocking at the doors of nearly every industry. Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff reportedly admitted that half of the work at his company is already handled by AI, half of the work. And he's not alone in this major shift. Major corporations are slashing jobs and pointing to automation as the reason. Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin is reportedly cutting 1,000 roles. That's nearly 10% of its workforce as it leans into AI-driven operations. Dating app Bumble eliminating 30% of its staffing needs reportedly to better compete with AI-powered dating apps. Business Insider reportedly laying off more than 20% of its employees, shifting towards AI-generated articles to offset declining search traffic, and even Google has offered employees early retirement in areas like search and ads, rethinking its human-heavy model. IBM has already let go of nearly 9,000 employees, mostly in HR, replaced by intelligent automation, while Intel could cut as much as 20% of its factory staff. Meta has trimmed 4,000 jobs while on a hiring spree for AI specialists, many reportedly poached from OpenAI. Microsoft, despite recording profits, has laid off 15,000 people this year alone, with AI reportedly now writing nearly a third of its codes. The CEO of Ford predicts half of all white-collar jobs could vanish. Anthropic CEO goes a step further, saying unemployment could spike by 20% globally due to AI disruption. It seems AI is not just changing how we work, it is increasingly deciding who gets to work at all. Ukraine has arrested 2 Chinese nationals, a father and son, for allegedly spying on its Neptune missile program. Ukrainian security officials saying the pair attempted to steal classified documents related to the country's homegrown anti-ship missile, allegedly a crucial part of Ukraine's defense against Russia. The Neptune missile system is a long-range anti-ship cruise missile designed to target naval vessels. Authorities in Kyiv saying the son, a 24-year-old former student, was arrested first after Ukraine counterintelligence officials provided him with technical documents related to the production of the Neptune system. Shortly after, his father was taken into custody. Investigators claiming the father coordinated with Chinese intelligence and traveled from China to oversee the operation personally. And Ukraine's intelligence agency accused the father of planning to smuggle the missile data out of the country and hand it over to Chinese authorities. China's foreign ministry saying it is gathering and verifying information on the matter.
Regarding the case of a Chinese father and son detained by Ukraine for allegedly trying to smuggle Navy missile technology out of the war-torn country, if Chinese citizens are involved, we will also safeguard Chinese citizens' legitimate rights and interests in accordance with the law.
And the arrest adding fuel to the long-standing Ukrainian claims that Beijing is backing Russia in its war efforts, despite projecting neutrality on the global stage. The president of Ukraine has accused China of sending weapons and explosives to Russia, remember. Ukraine has also sanctioned several Chinese companies Kyiv believes are supplying drone parts and other military technology to Moscow. Zelensky has also alleged that Chinese nationals have been captured fighting alongside Russian forces during combat operations in Ukraine. And according to reports, China is playing a significant role in supporting Russia's drone production that is enabling deadlier attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure and military positions. In fact, just 2 months ago, the Chinese president met the Russian president in Moscow, insisting that China remains neutral and has not armed either side. The Neptune missile system gained attention early in the Russia-Ukraine war when Ukraine reportedly used it to strike the flagship of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. And since then, Ukrainian forces have reportedly used the weapon in several high-profile strikes, including attacks on Russian oil facilities. Have you heard of matcha? Are you one of those who has tried it and taken a liking to the Japanese green drink? There's some news for you. The lovers of this drink around the world are apparently turning against each other, as the global supply shortage has left most of them teetering on the edge. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, the online community for matcha lovers, which helped the drink earn the spotlight it enjoys today, is going through a rather rough patch lately. A platform initially meant for recipes and reviews shared by matcha enthusiasts from around the world has now turned into a toxic space of do's and don'ts, with many rationing the drink component and policing acceptable quantities of matcha to be used in a beverage. And this is being made a lot worse by gatekeeping strategies that in a way dictate who is supposed to enjoy the drink anyway. Imagine someone putting a cap or setting a limit on the beverage of your choice in some way. How much should you consume? How should you consume it? Or rather, are you even eligible to consume it? Unbelievable. But let's just also tell you what triggered all of this. Experts say that behind all of this looms a global shortage of matcha and a steep jump in prices as well, thanks to the rapid mushrooming of resellers who can actually buy large quantities of the product from the small number of Japanese vendors who produce it. Many disgruntled by the sky-high prices are also switching to alternatives, like Japanese roasted green tea. But for those who might not be aware, matcha is a finely ground powder of green tea, specially processed from shade-brown tea leaves. Shade-grown tea leaves, something which lends the tea a bright green color and also a bittersweet taste. Equally interesting here is the drink-making process involving special tools like a mixing bowl, sifter and bamboo whisk. Also dubbed a fitness drink by many, the matcha fever has spread rather quickly, with many even making it an integral part of their lifestyles. In fact, matcha has also been added to other food items, such as matcha cakes, pastries, other confectionaries. While matcha may not be everyone's cup of tea, quite literally, there's almost a first time for those who have not tried it. For the rest, it is absolutely okay to stick to the drink of your choice as long as you enjoy sipping on it guilt-free. Do what works for you. Today is Gurpurnima, a special festival marking spiritual reverence for teachers. The day honors gurus who guide with wisdom and truth. It is celebrated by the Hindu, Buddhist and Jain communities. The symbolism is rich, the full moon representing the illumination of the mind, the offering of flowers symbolizing surrender, the act of touching the feet, a timeless gesture of humility. It is celebrated on the full moon day in the Hindu month of Ashata, usually falling in July. It marks the birth anniversary of Maharishi Vyasa, the sage who compiled the Vedas and authored the Mahabharata. He is considered the Adi Guru, the original teacher, and in Buddhism, this day commemorates the first sermon of Gautam Buddha as Sarnath, making it equally sacred for followers of the Dharma. Tradition says Guru Purnima is one of the most important days in a student's life. It's when you meditate on your teachings, set your intentions, and move steadfast towards your goals. So whether it's a spiritual master, a teacher who shaped your thinking in some way, or a parent who guided you through life, or anyone, this day is a reminder of the power of learning, the grace of wisdom, and the light that gives true guidance. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Kampir, signing off. Thanks for watching.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
As Hollywood reels from a crisis, we take a look at what's troubling the film crew. Know all about the actors in the running to play James Bond.
Hi everybody, namaskar.
And meet Indian singer Usha Uthup as she talks about her musical journey. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
This week on West Asia Post, Israel wants to turn Gaza into a human cage. A city in ruins fenced in from all sides. A military mishap or a mastermind move? How Iran tricked Israeli missiles into hitting its own targets. And inside Iran's mass deportation drive, 500,000 Afghans forced out. Tehran calls them a security threat and accusations of espionage for Israel.
Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, every Friday at these times, only on WION, World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION, World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines this hour. At a meeting on the sidelines of ASEAN in Malaysia, the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio tells his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov that Washington is frustrated due to the lack of progress on the Ukrainian peace talks. He's urged for a roadmap towards the resolution of the war. The British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the French President Emmanuel Macron call for more pressure in the form of fresh sanctions against Russia to secure a ceasefire in Ukraine. In Gaza, civil defense says that the number of the Palestinians killed by the Israelis in the last 24 hours has now gone up to 82. This includes at least 17 people who were killed in an Israeli bombing in front of a medical center in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. And 4 engineers have been suspended as a probe into the alleged lapses that resulted in the bridge collapse in Gujarat gets underway. The reports say that warnings had been clearly ignored. The death toll in the incident has now risen to over 16, with at least 7 more people said to be missing. The Parisian police says that 2 men have been arrested for